I'll do. I found a another quite shocking story here. This one's quite old. It's from August this year. Um, it's to do with basically a nonce. Surprise, surprise. That's what I'm reading about. I just find them disgusting, and I think people should know about them. But this one is shocking even more so due to the position this person held, and the fact that this wasn't bigger news than what it should have been. I find quite worrying. I'll put the link to the article below. Please read it yourself. As I always say, visit the sites as it helps them with their footfall and traffic for their advertising revenue. I don't receive any money from them. I'm not sponsored in any way. So please don't think I'm just doing that for financial reasons. I just think it's good practice to do so because these are giving us these stories to read from. So anyway, I'll crack on with this. Ex-Labour councillor in Hackney spared jail over sadistic sex images of children. Former Labour councillor in Hackney caught with sadistic images of children being sexually abused, as well as a cache of violent pornographic photos, has been spared jail. Now, people wonder why our country is in such a state, and I do think it is because the levers of power are being pulled by a lot of nonsense. That doesn't mean that I think an overwhelming majority of people, or a significant majority of people who work in these stations, are nonces, but I do think there is a significant enough number of people, I don't think it's organised by the way, but where they are able to influence and push society in a certain degenerate direction. And I do think this also comes down to things like the people supporting mass migration. I do think there's some sort of, I've not yet come to a full articulate way of expressing it yet, but I do think that there is a certain link between people who are nonces and in positions of authority and influence, and them pushing for mass migration. I don't know whether it's some way of shielding from themselves, trying, some sort of distraction, or I don't know. I've not yet come up with an adequate theory. I'm just trying to formulate the idea strongly in my head at the moment. With the more evidence I get presented with in my searches, to try and find some sort of social link between the two. I do think there is a link as well. Thomas Dewey, 36, was caught by the National Crime Agency. For those who don't know, the NCA is Britain's equivalent of the FBI in America. So they are a very serious investigatory force. After he uploaded some of the illegal images to an online storage platform. Sorry about I keep coughing and I've still got this, like the tail end of this chest virus that I've had. He was arrested at his then home in North London on April 29th last year, but went on a week later to be elected for Labour to sit on Hackney Council. Labour were notified in May 16th of the council's chief executive that he had been arrested and he was suspended from the party. Dewey resigned as a councillor the same day, triggering a by-election last July. Well, I mean, at least with this, Labour have kicked him out straight away. I do criticise Labour a lot for some of their actions, but at least with this individual, they did the right thing and removed him immediately. And it does appear that he stepped down voluntarily. So I suppose at least the nonce has done one thing right. Although I suppose he would have been aware that he would have been voted out by all the other councillors anyway at the first council meeting, I imagine. That would have triggered a by-election anyway, so they would have got rid of him one way or the other. At Wood Green Crown Court on Tuesday, this being August this year, Dewey was sentenced to 12 months in prison, suspended for 2 years, with 150 hours of community service and 40 days in rehab. Well, and I'm going to say it again, as I always say, he needs flogging as well on top of this. He absolutely needs lashing for this kind of behaviour. That is just absolutely disgusting. Now, I'm going to say something which some people might find very controversial right now, but I do believe there is a hierarchy of severity of nonces, and this person isn't at the highest level. He hasn't actually gone out, at least to my knowledge, and engaged in activity directly. However, all these images that he will have shared, every single one of those will be a real human being and a child, and that child has been victimised and been horrifically abused in order to create that material. So no, he isn't the worst kind of offender, which is why I don't think he should be executed. But he's absolutely feeding into that trade of child abuse. And you could say, well, those pictures are already out there, so You know, what harm is he doing by sharing it? But it's creating an industry. It's supply and demand, and he is an absolute wrong 'un for doing that. He absolutely should be flogged for this. There's just no. There's no anybody who tries to make an argument against that, in my opinion, is a nonce enabler, because there is no other way, I think, to correct these people other than to flog them, along with the custodial sentences and all the other stuff combined together. Recorder Jonathan Ashley Norman, KC, which means King's Counsel for those who don't know, the state-appointed barristers, said Dewey had taken commendable steps since your arrest to demonstrate your efforts to address your offending behaviour. Well, it's funny how he's done this after he's been caught and not before. You know, oh, I'm so sorry, Your Honour. I am a terrible, terrible person. Well, you know, surely you must have known it was wrong when you was engaging in that. Why didn't you go and seek help before that? You know, and even I would even be very cautious around people seeking help. However, if somebody was to go to the doctor and say, Doctor, I think I'm a nonce, can you help me? I wouldn't want that person at least flogging. You know, they shouldn't be around children. You know, you still have to be cautious around those people. There's still a danger to children, you know. But they at least would be acknowledging that it isn't right what they're doing and that they need help to at least try and help them not engage in that kind of activity. Even if it's giving them, putting them in a secure home and treating them obviously humanely from that point onwards, but putting them somewhere where you can monitor them, where the internet is limited on what you can access, etc., etc. You know, timed in and out. You know, maybe you can go outside, but you have to say where you're going, what you're doing, blah blah blah. And people might say, well, that's quite draconian, but you know what? It's better than kids getting abused, in my opinion. It's, you know, this, we don't let lions and tigers walk around, you know, the streets. We put them in zoos so people can look at them, you know. We don't say, well, you want to look at a lion and a tiger? We'll just let them wander around the British countryside. Go and enjoy them. Go out in your car and enjoy a lion in the wild, in you know, in the Yorkshire moors. Go look at a tiger down, you know, in the Scottish Highlands. You know, just go. You know, no, that'd be absolute madness, wouldn't it? Because they'd kill people, and we would recognise that very, very quickly. Why will any nonces walk around? Your actions have had a devastating impact on your life and the lives of your closest family. Well, absolutely, that is a very, very good point as well. What they've said here in court, which is it's not just these children's lives who are affected, but it's everybody around him. You know, all his friends, you know, like people who've worked with him, their reputations may now be getting affected by that, because people are like, well, why did you allow that nonsense? You know, his actual family as well. You know, God help his mother and his father. They must be absolutely ashamed of this. You know, and if he's got any siblings as well, oh my goodness, I wouldn't want to associate with that person anymore. They'd be dead to me. I recognise the steps you've taken in order to turn your life around. Prosecutor Margia Mustafa told the court on April 29th, 2022, NCA officers received 4 cyber tip line reports identifying the user of an online Google account. The user had uploaded indecent, prohibited images of children to his online storage. NCA officers went to his home in North London and seized 2 laptops, 2 tablets and hard drive containing 249 indecent images of children, including 5 of the most serious category involving sadistic abuse. Yep, flogging. Absolutely needs flogging for that. Dewey had also downloaded 78 extreme pornographic images involving violence and graphic injuries, as well as sex with animals, and 1,523 CGI and cartoon images involving the sexual abuse of children. Now, there is a type of artwork, what people call something like, I think it's lolly, and you people who generally, from my understanding, engage in that go, oh, well, it's not real, it's only a drawing, it's only artistic. It's part of the pipeline. It's part of the feed. This is probably how he got into this. It's like how a drug addict gets addicted to drugs. They don't start off taking massive amounts of heroin on day one. They start with small amounts and possibly even things that are less dangerous, and they build up to that problem that they end up with. And it's the same with this. He's probably started with these grotesque cartoon images and thought, oh, well, what's the problem with this? It's not real. It's not real. But over time, the fix that he was getting from the excitement of those images has started to dwindle, and he's had to get something more extreme and more extreme. And before you know it, he's ended up with absolutely sadistic images of these poor children being brutalised in the worst possible way. The court heard the images had been downloaded between 2008 and 2022, with the last ones being saved 2 days before his arrest. So even before his arrest, he was cracking on with this, and now he's trying to plead that he's sorry for what he's done. No, I think that's crocodile tears in my own opinion. He's sorry that he's being caught, I think, is the issue here. Full details of the abuse pictures were not revealed in court, but Miss Mustafa told the judge he could read a report which detailed sadism, penetration, and the ages of the children involved. I mean, that's just absolutely disgusting, isn't it? I mean, I suppose the only way it could get any worse would be if the children were being murdered as well, in my opinion. You know, that is, well, but that's the next level, really, isn't it? You know, when you're already going down that road, his next thing will be to actually start offending. You know, it's and then that you know, this is serial killer route behaviour in my opinion. A report also concluded that Dewey posed a medium risk to teenage boys. Right, so he's a homosexual as well. Then, not that that's particularly relevant, but just more of a statement of the fact. Dewey wearing I do believe actually that as a ratio, homosexual males are far more likely as a ratio of a percentage of population more likely to offend than heterosexual men. But I believe there's more heterosexual paedophilic crime simply because of the larger number of heterosexual men. I think it's some. I can't. You know, I'd have to look at it again. I can't remember it. I believe the difference in percentages of group sizes is startlingly big. Dewey, wearing a brightly patterned tie, blue suit, and with his hair tied in a bun, spoke only to confirm his name during the sentencing hearing. Rihanna Sadler, mitigating for Dewey, said he sought treatment and therapy shortly before being arrested, long before he was charged earlier this year. I wonder if he knew that they were actually going to be on the way. I wonder if something had tipped him off on that. He's addressing the problem he has as proactively as he possibly can, she said. He's also taken responsibility personally by speaking with his family, which we can all accept wouldn't have been an easy conversation, only because he's been forced to, because he's been caught. He did this immediately, as he did with his employer, and having difficult conversations as well with the Labour Party. Character references were offered to the court from Dewey's mother and sister, while Dewey himself wrote a letter to the court which was not read aloud. Well, I don't know if these character reference actually is in any way, shape or form worth the paper it's printed on at this point, because he's gone on for over a decade doing this. You know, 14 years, 2008 to 2022. That's 14 years he's been cracking on doing this. Can you trust a single word out of it? This is the other thing with people like this. You can't trust them. You know, and it's going to be. I'm going to go slightly off topic here, but people. There seems to be, and it's not a massive thing, but I have heard people talking about the what they would say are the merits of adult incest, which is absolutely disgusting. But they discuss it in a fact of, yeah, but these are two consenting adults. But like with that, it's a case of you can't trust people. If there's certain boundaries that shouldn't be crossed, and if people are willing to engage in those kind of boundary crossings, you can't trust them with anything, because if they're willing to do that, what else are they willing to do? Can you turn your back on a person like that? Can you leave your wallet and your phone on the table in front of a person like that if you're going to go to the toilet? You know, can you trust a person isn't going to break into a car because they have no impulse control whatsoever? You know, the fact that they're thinking these things is bad enough, but then the fact that they want to enact on them, or in his case, they are enacting on these things. The same with people who abuse animals as well. They are showing zero impulse control in their life. So they are therefore not trustworthy in wider society in and of itself. And because we live in a high trust society, it's what allows us to function as a civilization. It's why things like the Industrial Revolution were capable of happening, because we live in because we don't have a clan system in the West. We have high trust socialized nations. Dewey, now living in a cottage in Petersfield in Hampshire, well, I'd be trying to get him kicked out if I lived there, pleaded guilty to 3 charges of making indecent images of children. Making indecent images, for anybody wondering, doesn't mean he's necessarily involving himself in the pictures. That can mean, my understanding is if you take a photograph of something and then making that picture can be copying it on a computer to send it somewhere else. That, I believe, can also be classed as making images. So it's quite a nuanced, nebulous term almost. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're taking pictures of somebody in the action. Possessing, or if he's transferring it onto a hard drive, that I think could be classed as making images. Possessing extreme pornographic images and possessing prohibited images of children. He will be subject to a sexual harm prevention order. That is the end of the article. Short answer: flog him in prison. And then, I don't know, after that, he obviously needs monitoring as well, you know, sex offenders register for life, etc. But anyway, I'll leave it at that. That's just quite a shocking story. I'm surprised it didn't get more public traction. But anyway, that's unfortunately the nature of media in the UK. When Labour do bad things, the media tend to not talk about it unless they absolutely have to. But sorry, the point I was going to make earlier, and I never got into it too much. But this is why things like, I was alluding to it, but things like the grooming gang scandal was able to happen because you've got wrong-uns like this working in these parties. It's not just that people are covering it up; it's because people like this actively are engaging in these types of activities themselves. So they are willing to turn a blind eye to it in other aspects. It's hard to. I find it hard to think sometimes when I read stories like that. It just boggles my mind how prevalent this is in our positions of power and authority, you know, and in the levers of our country. It's just absolutely shocking. And I do think that we do need to start, like I say, coming down a lot harder on these people. I do think it is the only solution, unfortunately. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there now. I've waffled on enough with that. So anyway, if you found that informative, insightful, interesting, or you've enjoyed, enjoyed is probably not the right word, but you know what I mean. Please like, subscribe, put a comment below, and I'll speak to you all later. Bye-bye.